there's something happening which I think is meaning that a lot of people of talent aren't going into politics. It's certainly happening. That's true in the United States. It's true in Europe. People ask me why that is, and I think one of the answers, and I'm not an overall media basher, but I think one of the reasons why people of talent are not going into politics in the way they did before Bill is because of the increasing intrusiveness of the media into the private lives of politicians.
Prime Minister, optimism?
Oh, I'm an incredible optimist, and I think everything about our nation should instil a sense of optimism in us. And look, everything about my life instills a sense of optimism in me. I mean, what a great end up being the first female Prime Minister of Australia. It says something wonderful about this place. So when you live through so much which would instil optimism into you, why wouldn't you be optimistic about the future? And I'm optimistic about it because of the strengths and capacities of our people. I love going to schools. I've been chided sometimes in the media for saying how much I love going to schools, but I do. You're seeing the future of our nation created there. And when you look at those kids, when you look at their capacities, when you look at the questions they ask, the things that they're doing, why wouldn't you be an optimist about the future of this country, provided we, the current generation, are smart enough and brave enough to make a set of decisions now which give that generation the opportunity and the...
How is it that, how do you think you would have governed Australia differently if you'd had a majority in Parliament?
I think the big decisions, the really big decisions this government's taken would be effectively the same. I mean, when we talk about what has been achieved during this period of government, of course people's eyes go to things like carbon pricing. It's been a huge thing to do. I actually think that the circumstances, the unusual circumstances of minority government in some ways made facing up to an issue as big as that possible, because it meant that we could work across both houses, the House and the Senate, not just put something in the Senate and have it knocked over, which was the history of the carbon pollution reduction scheme, but actually work in a way which meant the proposition that went to the Parliament was going to get carried. So I think, the unusual circumstances of this Parliament has given us some opportunities that more traditional parliaments haven't been able to seize. But big decisions of this government, whether it was deciding that we should have to put healthcare on a sustainable funding footing for the future, that the federal government became equal partners in growth, whether it was all of the big decisions we've made to reform schools and to reform training and universities so people get more opportunity, the big decisions we've taken on things like aged care, sharing the benefits of the mining boom, we would have done those things as a majority government because they're the right things to do. Sing a song. Sing a song.
How is your Welsh track singing?
Well, this is a problem. We are a Welsh family, and that would mean that we should be able to sing. But for some reason, the Gillards are the only non-singing Welsh people on the planet. Indeed, one of my earliest memories is being in church with my mother and father, with my mother going like that to my father, saying, "Quieter, John," as he sung the hymn, because he was so out of tune. So I've joked with my parents we're in fact cultural refugees. That's why we're here in this country, the only Welsh people who can't sing. So no, I won't be singing a song.
I wanted to ask, how much harder do you think it is for a woman to have achieved what you've achieved in politics than if you're a bloke?
That's a very good question, and one I've had a lot of cause to reflect on over the last 12 months. and even to speak about in the federal parliament, as some of you may have seen. To some extent, I don't think I or even the nation will be fully able to assess what it's meant to be the first woman until we're sometime in the future and we can kind of compare and reflect on experiences. When I go to schools, girls talk to me about going into Parliament. I've got a friend who recounted to me a conversation she had with her young son. So she's talking to a young son about 4 or 5 years old about, government and Australia and all the rest of it. And she concludes the conversation by saying, "You never know, you could grow up to be Prime Minister," to which he said with a lot of authority, "No, Mum, you need to be a girl to do that." So, incredible upside if it's inspired girls out there to think that this is an occupation for them, if it's inspired a generation of boys to think that it's just a really normal thing to have a woman do this job, then kind of mission accomplished, tick. What, of course, it's meant on the downside is endless carry on about hair and makeup and dress and stumbles in high heels and all the rest of it. I can't possibly fall over in these shoes today, though I'm potentially clumsy enough to manage it. And I think it's brought an attention onto private life and personal issues that wouldn't have been there in quite the same way. And on some of the more difficult days, I do worry that maybe some of those things mean some girls think to themselves, "God, why would you put yourself through that?" But I'm satisfied that it's inspired and interested more than it has shone a light on the downside.
Bob, have you got any comment?
I think that Julia's been subject to some extremely unfair criticism because she's criticised about their dress very much. I mean, I didn't, and I wasn't the perfect male model. And I think
you just didn't hear it, Bob. You just didn't hear it.
Well, perhaps I didn't hear it, but I mean, it wasn't an area which journalists thought was necessary or reasonable to cover. My actual what sort of clothes I want, so it's more of a thing with women. I think that's bloody ridiculous, but absolutely ridiculous. But the thing is, Julia's determination has come through. She's now respected absolutely in her own right as a person, and that's the way it should be. What about it outside here, Bill? Come on.
Prime Minister, I got my questions mixed up before and I threw Barack Obama in there. You spent some time with this man. The US economy and the US influence is still huge, the largest economy in the world.
Second largest.
After the European economy. You've spent...
I absolutely think he is. He's in private the person that you see on TV. There's not a sharp difference between public persona and private persona. He's a remarkably calm, indeed a kind of island of stillness in this huge, machine that is the American stuff that comes with being American president, whether it's the security or the car or the plane or everything else that needs to whir around him. He's this incredible kind of island of stillness in the middle of it, a very calm person, a very thoughtful person, and a very friendly person. When we had him here in Australia, walking through with him in Parliament House, as you walk through, he said, "Hello, sir, hello, ma'am," to every staff member, every attendant, every person who works in Parliament House that he walked past. And nothing makes him do that, say hello to someone who works in Parliament House. I mean, our Parliament House cleaners, some of them got to say hello to him. I mean, nothing makes him do that except being a really decent person. So he's a very decent